Yeah, I'm kind of blacklisted. I haven't gotten a studio job in 15 years. 15 years.
So you feel in a way that you are banned from the...
No, not in a way.
Not only did Val Kilmer leave Hollywood, but he was also eliminated just after his career peaked. Disappeared from blockbusters without notice, and now Mel Gibson is finally disclosing the unsettling truth about why Kilmer disregarded the rules and how that choice might have cost him everything. Let's go back to the 1980s and early 1990s, when Val Kilmer wasn't just in movies, he was the youngest accepted youngster in history and brimming with unadulterated talent. Kilmer possessed the sort of charm that attracted casting agencies because, although he was arrogant, he had the receipts. Top secret: the doors of Top Gun. When Tombstone played Jim Morrison, fans swore he was Morrison. By 1995, when he wore the Batman suit for Batman Forever, he was a Hollywood star, but he disappeared as quickly as he appeared. When Batman and Robin appeared, Kilmer was nowhere to be seen, and George Clooney took over without providing an explanation or a follow-up, just silence. Director Joel Schumacher didn't ignore it. Joel didn't hold back when he finally revealed his drama with Val Kilmer in an interview with The Independent. He called Val psychotic, said that he was tired of defending overpaid, privileged actors, and even said that he prayed to never work with Val again. He then added the most petty line: he behaved badly, he was rude, and inappropriate. We had 2 weeks where he didn't speak to me, but it was bliss. Now, let's be honest for a moment. How many famous men have thrown chairs on set, cursed out staff, and still won Oscars? Was Val really that bad, or was he just not playing the right game with the right people? Then came the blacklisting whispers. Do you believe that individuals found it challenging to collaborate with you because, yes, what's the one past difficult impossible? Val himself acknowledged this in a terribly candid interview. Yeah, I'm kind of blacklisted. I haven't gotten a studio job in 15 years, so you feel in a way that you are banned from the know. Not in a way you are. Yeah, I think are your goal to get back, or yeah, I'd love to. I've always watched movies and wondered what I'd be like in that part. He said it wasn't his behavior, it was his refusal to play by the rules, but I had ideas, insecurities obviously about myself that I projected onto the movie business, just the sounds coming out of my mouth. It was just absurdly unrealistic. So apparently I have an evil twin. The industry demanded silence and obedience. I was a dumb actor, but I did complain quite a bit when I was younger. I didn't appreciate the business that afforded me the lifestyle that I very quickly enjoyed. Very quickly I starred in my first movie. I was the lead in the first play I did professionally, and now that, I don't have that privilege. I wish that I loved more. I want to be a better person. I try to figure that out every day and of being more, grateful. And he made the mistake of thinking it was about the art. If you get back, will you behave in another way, or yes, in the way that gets me hired again? Music. I was rather vocal about certain aspects of the art, but since it's a business, I pretended that it wasn't, which is when the timeline begins to seem shady, which was between 1998 and 1999. Kilmer is not the only one who falls off. Mel Gibson, Wesley Snipes, Fraser, Brendan, they all go dark around the same era. Mel, once the king of box office, suddenly can't get a gig unless he finances the movie himself. Wesley gets thrown in prison over taxes his accountant supposedly fumbled. Brendan vanishes after calling out a boo. Are we seeing a pattern here? Because the internet thinks so. And Mel, he said the quiet part out loud in 1998. I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on, because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand, right? And nobody was really bothering to explain it to me. They don't, and I formed a bunch of opinions about the town and about the people in it. He described Hollywood like a creepy saloon in a western where the second you walk in everyone goes quiet. The whole place can't be like, weird town, where the stranger wanders in and all the people are in the bar and they all shut up when he looks at him and they tell you, don't go into the house on the hill. You think, no, I was wrong. That's insane thinking. I'm paranoid. I imagined that stuff. That couldn't be the reason why so-and-so was acting like. Could it? When you leave after that After directing The Passion of the Christ, he received the silent treatment from all major studios and was compelled to finance his own movies. Later on in life, he discovered he wasn't crazy and that he was correct. Now, he has this 1999 Stanley Kubrick opens his eyes wide, revealing exclusive gatherings and secret societies. The entire movie seems to be a metaphor for Hollywood's shadowy side, and Kubrick passes away before he can approve the final cut. Aside from the purported deletion of 25 minutes of video, another notable event in 1999 was that Val Kilmer left Hollywood's A-list. Speaking of masks, consider this: Val Kilmer's Batman was a cold, haunted shell of a man, the ideal metaphor for someone who has seen too much and worn too many masks. Kilmer was not only an actor but also a documentary filmmaker who documented every aspect of his life, even private moments and childhood sets, since he knew he would want receipts for his 2021 documentary. I have thousands of hours of videotapes and film reels that I've shot throughout the course of my life and career, and Val was haunting. Turn off the video camera, but leave it on until we're rehearsing. Oh my God, not simply the video, but also the underlying message that a man was preserving his own eraser, followed by the island, you know, the one that flies and names the stillness. The timing: Kilmer's demise coincides perfectly with the emergence of rumors about Epstein's circle. Did Kilmer turn down an invitation, say the wrong thing? We don't know, but let's just say that too many careers ended at the same time for it to be a coincidence. But let's go back to 2015, when the screenplay for Sound of Freedom was first written. Based on the real-life work of former Homeland Security agent Tim Ballard, the filming was completed in 2018. You would think this would have been a big release, but nope, it was passed around like an unwanted group project that no one wanted to present. Why it sat untouched for 5 years? Well, that's where the suspense begins. When Disney acquired Fox in 2019, they essentially locked Sound of Freedom in a vault, making it seem as though the movie never happened. Let's face it, this is where people began to cast doubt on the situation because, since the late 1990s, Mel Gibson has been Hollywood's black sheep, calling out the industry's dark energy. At the time, he was still unsure if he was paranoid or if Hollywood was truly giving off a haunted house vibe, but the longer he stayed, the more certain he became that it's not paranoid if they're actually hiding something. He once compared Hollywood to a twisted small town where everyone knows the secret but no one speaks. When he revealed that a significant producer supposedly informed him that there was a producer, it was one of the moments that people found most memorable. I know successful producers, but I won't name them, but his entire point about women in movies, from start to finish, is so succinct: women in movies, whether naked or dead, are better, and it's like whoa MHM. Mel criticized Hollywood early on for being spiritually bankrupt, and as time went on, he wasn't quiet about it. He called them out for the way they treat women, exploit children, and protect predators. So when Sound of Freedom was finally released independently and began to make waves, his support felt personal, and guess what? The movie 8 made almost $100 million worldwide on a $14 million budget, but the mainstream media was dead silent, actually scratching their heads. The Rolling Stone's The Guardian did not provide a thorough analysis, instead labeling it conspiracy bait. Despite being largely excluded from major endeavors, there are only vibes and shade, not facts. Mel has been attempting to make moves for years. He has been hyping up Lethal Weapon 5, claiming that it is the best script in the entire franchise. However, he is unable to explain why, so let's face it, it's probably more about how risky studios think his name is than it is about the quality of the script. Notably, some members of the industry have stood up for Mel, including Robert Downey Jr., also known as Mr. Comeback King, who famously endorsed him, and more recently Andrew Garfield, who backed him as well. When Garfield was promoting Hacksaw Ridge, which Mel directed, he made it a point to say, "Everyone deserves second, third, even fourth chances, but that's not happening anytime soon." Mel is now implying that Val understood that being famous in Hollywood came with a price, not just hard labor, but your soul, and Kilmer wasn't prepared to sign that spiritual lease. Mel essentially suggested that Val saw too much, asked the incorrect questions, and declined the elite handshake. Then, opportunities dried up, projects disappeared, and the media reframed the story to blame him. According to Mel, it wasn't simply about being ill or taking a step back. When Val returned as Iceman in Maverick, it seemed like a miracle, a comeback, but if you watch that scene again, it doesn't feel like a comeback. Instead, it feels like a farewell. That voice you heard in the film wasn't really his, it was part AI, part old recordings, part smoke and mirrors. He wanted to do that scene so badly that they made it work, but off camera, he was struggling hard. Every shoot day took a toll, every line was a battle, and here's the thing, after that film, Val became extremely quiet, stopped doing interviews, and stopped appearing. Fans believed he was simply relaxing and leading a private life, but what we didn't know was that he was actually slowly vanishing. His friends also noticed that he wasn't returning calls or texts, and some hadn't seen him in months. Even family members weren't in the loop, but nobody really cared because, after all, he was Val Kilmer, the enigma, the spiritual artist, the man who made solitude his way of life until he passed away on April 1st. Many likely thought it was an April Fool's joke, but it wasn't, and the autopsy report was released, and then everything changed. Although he was battling throat cancer, his official cause of death was pneumonia, but pneumonia is Hollywood's go-to explanation for unexplained deaths. The same story with Kim Porter and Rhea Harold. Kim is dead heavy, a convenient disease that muffles the noise. Dee was discovered dead, face down, after a heart attack. Andre Harrell was also dead. The only two people remaining are Puffy and Al, who nearly passed away. Kim passed away from pneumonia, but according to the initial coroner's report, her death was declared a homicide, and they discovered toxins in her body to demonstrate that she had been poisoned. As you may know, they have poisons that cause heart attacks and symptoms similar to pneumonia. Kilmer was in the kind of physical state you'd expect from someone who had been gradually deteriorating for a long time. The coroner mentioned that some of the infections could have been treated but weren't because Val wasn't talking, he wasn't asking for help, he was hurting badly and keeping it all inside, and then there were the medications. Kilmer also had lingering infections, surgical wounds that hadn't healed, and severe malnutrition. The report suggested that this may have been intentional withdrawal or neglect. High levels of prescription painkillers were discovered in the report, not enough to cause OD, but enough to indicate that the man was in ongoing pain, both physically and likely emotionally as well, the kind of anguish you give up trying to express to others because no one truly understands it. He had spent the last few years blogging, sketching, and spending time with his children but simultaneously withdrawing. Not to mention the Batman memorial he shared a few days prior to his passing, "I have an animal for us. It's been a while. Oh, you look great." In the end, Val Kilmer was more than just a celebrity, he was a whistleblower in a cape who dared to speak out in a field that relies heavily on silence. If he was blacklisted for that, it raises the question of who else remained silent to survive. Perhaps Kilmer's silence was a strategy for protection, or perhaps the true story isn't how he died but rather why he vanished. If that struck you, you're not alone, but you'll want to watch our next